Welcome back to the neighborhood. I'm Dylan, and today I'm talking about Diablo 4. Diablo 4 has been out for a month now, and I've been having a ton of fun exploring the world and slaying demons. It's pretty much the only game I've played for the past month, and I'm looking forward to continuing to play it as the game evolves and seasons begin. While I've played a lot of Diablo 4, it seems many of the videos, builds, and advice out there are focused on a part of the game that I haven't even really begun to delve into, and I'm sitting at a little over 100 hours of playtime so far. Looking at the achievements, about 70% of players have not even completed the story yet or gotten a character to level 50. My hope is that this video finds those players and helps them enjoy the experience most of us are having instead of bouncing off of the game because they tried to follow a guide that suggested they run the first half of the same dungeon over and over again with a build they aren't able to make because the gear won't start dropping until they unlock World Tier 3. So here are some tips I would give to someone just trying to enjoy the game. Tip number 1, take your time. Most guides I see online focus on the absolutely most efficient way to level up and are often geared more towards characters beyond your first, which you can skip the campaign on. If you only enjoy games if you are playing them at peak, min-maxed efficiency, that's fine, but in my opinion, that's probably not the most fun way to experience this game. How Long to Beat estimates the main story will take you anywhere from 20 to 40 hours depending on how much of the side questing and exploring you do, and that's perfectly fine. There is so much to do during that time, so don't feel the need to rush through and get to level 50 unless that's how you really want to play. I personally enjoyed the story a ton and loved getting to discover the environment. The end game will still be there when you make it there, and really, it's not designed to be burned through and played for 8 hours or more a day. Pretty much anything can get stale if you do that. Tip number 2, don't feel like you've got to do everything. Like I said, there's a ton of content in this game. You can quickly become overwhelmed with the blue exclamation points marking side quests, events, dungeons, and statues of Lilith to track down. It would be easy to spend hours and hours in the first zone, and if you want to, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. That said, there's plenty of features that unlock as you progress the story and even more that unlock after you complete the story. The campaign mostly scales with your level, and doing it with a few side quests will easily get you close to level 50 by the end, and you can always keep doing all that side stuff after the story is finished. And there's even some benefits to waiting to knock some of them out until then. Tip number 3, feel free to experiment with your moves. The skill tree has a lot of information packed onto it, and some of the key words that it uses can be confusing, especially at first. But the good news is that before reaching level 50 and completing the story, it doesn't matter that much. Now that said, I won't tell you it's impossible to make a bad build that will hamper your enjoyment of the game, but you also don't need the absolute min-maxed build to finish the campaign and reach level 50. The most important thing is that you're having fun, so if you aren't, change things up. Moves that apply vulnerable are always strong, but before the endgame, it doesn't matter as much. A simple shorthand can be just picking the moves in each node that match, like choosing all the werewolf skills for the druid or all the lightning skills for the sorcerer. Will this be a build you can play all the way to level 100? Probably not, but it should get you through the campaign just fine, and again, if you hit a wall or you just aren't enjoying the playstyle, change it up. Tip number 4, if you do look up a build, look for beginner or leveling builds. There are no shortage of build guides online, and you can find any number of cool looking ideas to try with your character. Unfortunately, many of these builds rely pretty heavily on your character having all the skill points and legendary aspects to work with. Some of them even need ultra rare unique items in order to function properly. This means that most of these builds will be virtually impossible to use correctly until after level 50, and having some very specific items drop. Changing over your character's skills, only to find out that it's no fun to play because you don't have the necessary aspects and items, suck, and can make people bounce off if they don't realize why their character can't do the things in the video they found on YouTube from someone who spent 200 hours in the game. So if you are looking up a build, Make sure it's a leveling build or a beginner build that you can make with aspects you get from the dungeons rather than a build meant for level 70 or above. Once you've gotten to World Tier 3 and are starting to get more and more drops, maybe even a few unique items, then start looking at some of the more complex builds. Tip number 5. There's a ton of systems in the game, but you don't really have to engage with all of them at once. There are a lot of guides out there that go into a ton of detail about Paragon boards, nightmare sigils, different builds, gems, and enchanting, and much more. These are great and extremely helpful once you get to the point that you need to start paying attention to them, but until you are level 50 and have beaten the campaign, you can pretty safely ignore most of these. Sure, there may be some small benefits to tweaking with some of the systems, and if you want to explore them, for sure go ahead, but for roughly 70% of people who haven't beaten the campaign or reached level 50, these systems won't make that much of a difference beyond draining some of your gold. Most of them come into some play once you reach level 50, but even then, there are some that really only start making a difference between life and death past level 70. So to sum it up, play at your own pace and do the stuff that you are finding fun, but don't feel like you need to do everything. There are a ton of guides out there, but don't let them dictate how you want to experience this game. Feel free to experiment with your skill points, but if you do look up a guide, make sure it's not a build that's not playable until later in the game. There's also a ton of more complicated systems that the guides will talk about, but for the most part, those can be ignored until you beat the campaign and reach level 50. But again, let me emphasize, play this game how you want to. Blizzard has done a fantastic job of making the game accessible to new and casual players in my opinion, and I'd hate to see that ruined because of tips, tricks, and guides that really only apply to a minority of players. Those have been my tips. Do you have any tips for those just trying to enjoy the game casually? Leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving us a like and subscribe to get notified when a new video goes live. With that, I'll leave you with a reminder to stay friendly, gamers.